and her policy of confrontation with Europe.
The President of the Commission, Mr. Delors, said at press conference the other day that he wanted the European Parliament to be the democratic body of the community, he wanted the Commission to be the executive, and he wanted the Council of Ministers to be the Senate. No, no, no.
Michael Heseltine was manoeuvring to replace her. All he needed was an excuse. Geoffrey Howe's resignation provided it, and his attack on his betrayal by his own team captain.
It's rather like sending your opening batsman to the crease, only for them to find, the moment the first balls are bowled, that their bats have been broken before the game by the team captain.
A red-eyed Margaret Thatcher left Downing Street for the last time on the 28th of November 1990, having been told by her cabinet that she had to go. They concluded that the country had simply had enough of the longest-serving Prime Minister of the 20th century. For years, though people queued up to read and hear her views, she was shunned by her own party leadership, and of course by Labour, who'd loathed her so much. Until, that is, Gordon Brown tried to get some of the old Thatcher magic to rub off on his premiership, the surest sign that even those who'd been her bitter enemies now saw at least some of the benefits of the Thatcher Revolution. In failing health, and now alone after the death of her loyal husband Dennis, Margaret Thatcher unveiled her own statue in the House of Commons. She would never speak in public again, but she must have known that for many she still pointed the way which Britain ought to follow.
And if you just joined us, to let you know that the news has been announced this morning of the death of Baroness Thatcher. She died peacefully following a stroke this morning, according to her spokesman, Lord Bell. And in response to that news this morning, the Prime Minister has said, "It is with great sadness that I learned of the death of Lady Thatcher. We have lost a great leader, a great Prime Minister, and a great Britain." Those are the words of David Cameron in the past few minutes. Let's talk now to our Deputy Political Editor, James Landale, who joins us from Westminster. Lots of other tributes coming in, James.
Yes, lots of other tributes. In particular, we've just had one from the Queen, who said in an official statement from Buckingham Palace, the Queen was sad to hear the news of the death of Baroness Thatcher. Her Majesty will be sending a private message of sympathy to the family. That is all for now. Across the political spectrum, too, there have been... this is the first major political death we've had within the era of Twitter, and there are repeated tweets now coming in from across the political spectrum of people expressing their sadness at her passing. But what is interesting, too, is that there is concern and expressions of sympathy across the political spectrum, and also MPs now from the Labour Party and others saying, warning their colleagues to respond in kind. For example, one MP, Ivan Lewis, says he hopes that all Labour supporters will respond with dignity and respect to news of her death. So,
I suppose the most remarkable time was the
commiserations for the family and sympathy across the piece.
I think it was during those weeks that she lived
stage yet where
and profoundly,
analysis is coming in
the pressures on her and the
time in office
issues at stake were very high.
And it has been a while since we've seen Lady Thatcher in public. Of course, we knew about her frail health in the summer of 2011 when engagements to be cancelled. But do we know much more about the last conclusion?
Nothing officially, although what I can tell you is that I was told very recently by one of her closest supporters that she had been spending much of her recent days not at home, but at the Ritz Hotel. This was because such was the sense of her frailty that it was considered more convenient because of the size of the room, the shape of the rooms, the nature of the lifts in the hotel, that this was a more convenient location for her.
She was kept a statuette of the soldiers in the Falklands with her in her office in her retirement. Lord Armstrong, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Well, reaction now coming in. The Queen was sad to hear the news of the death of Baroness Thatcher, and Her Majesty will be sending a private message of sympathy to the family. I believe it has already been decided that Margaret Thatcher will be accorded an official funeral, a state funeral, of course, from members of the royal family, but it will will be a major event here in central London in due course.
Well, I think her legacy will be one of
the Prime Minister, David Cameron, who is on a visit today to Spain and to France, has tweeted, "It was with great sadness that I learned of Lady Thatcher's death. We've lost a great leader, a great Prime Minister, and a great Britain."
The Falkland Islands and to the sense of self-belief.
I should remember too, of course, that Parliament is in recess at the moment until next week, which means that MPs aren't in Westminster. They will be gathering for next week, of course, so news will be coming in from across the country. Well, we can speak now to the former Conservative MP and columnist Michael Brown, who, as a young man, knew Margaret Thatcher well.
I did indeed, Adam, and indeed I had lunch with her just before Christmas, and Lord Forsyth, Gerald Howes and Chris Chope, and I, of course, was one of her gays in that famous 1979 general election, and I claimed to her in my first ever meeting with her in Downing Street to have helped get her into number 10, and I will never forget it, Adam. She said to me, "How many votes did you get?" And I said, "Well, 31,500, and my majority was just under 500. And she said to me, "Michael, you got the 500 votes, I got the 31,000 votes." That was my first ever conversation with her as Prime Minister, and she kept me as a Member of Parliament for two subsequent general elections. So I owe her everything, and she was a phenomenal political force in the 20th century, and I was privileged to have a ringside seat throughout every day of her premiership.
What do you think she means for the modern-day Conservative Party, David Cameron's Conservative Party?
Well, she is a shadow continually over the Conservative Party, both in life and now, sadly, in death, because all of us, whether we're wet, dries, whether we're modern, compassionate Conservatives, right-wing Conservatives, all of us derive our conservatism from the inspiration of Margaret Thatcher. There isn't a single Conservative Member of Parliament on any wing of the party, whether it's the happy-clappy Cameroons or whether it's the traditional Thatcherite right, of which I am proud to call myself a supporter, and hopefully will continue the flame of that inheritance. All of us pay homage to Margaret Thatcher in the way that Republicans do in America to Ronald Reagan.
Although it's fair to say, is it not, that the present generation of Conservative leadership, one thinks of people like George Osborne and David Cameron, didn't really know Margaret Thatcher. They're too young. They weren't around.
That's right. I mean, I think David Cameron joined the Conservative Research Department just at the point that her premiership was coming to an end. The blunt truth is that generation of politicians that now runs the show were in short trousers then, and some of us would say they're still in short trousers now, Adam. I only wish that she was able in her latter years to give the advice and guidance to them that she did to my generation.
Because you said you saw her shortly before Christmas. I think it's fair to say that for some time now she's been in very, very poor health and not always all there mentally as well.
Well, just before Christmas, it was a delightful lunch. What Lord Forsyth and I and others who've known her many years do is to remind her of the contribution that she made and the inspiration she gave to us. And I remember telling her just before Christmas, Margaret, you gave me a fantastic piece of advice which I wish your successors had adhered to. You said to me, "Michael, always get the message out, what we're about, in less than a minute and in less than 50 words." And you could summarise her political philosophy in that. I only wish that today's Conservative Party could do the same to the voters.
Michael Brown, thank you very much indeed for joining us. We're joined now by Charles Moore of The Spectator, but more importantly in this case the official biographer of Margaret Thatcher, although his work not yet been published. Charles Moore, most people would call her a transformative Prime Minister. In what ways do you think she changed this country?
Well, first of all, and it's so obvious people forget it, by being the first woman who could do it, who did it, she changed everybody's attitude to her sex and advanced the cause of women. Secondly, she was absolutely determined to grip what she considered to be wrong with the country, which was its economic weakness, its decline, and its excessive trade union power, and she was very successful in that. And thirdly, she was very much on the front foot in the fight for freedom and against Soviet communism, and was very important with President Reagan in winning the Cold War. So if you think of those, you combine those things, it was an enormous transformation, and she was successful enough and in office long enough to see a lot of those transformations through. So things have never been the same.
But if you look at two questions, Europe and the welfare state, one could argue that she certainly didn't resolve those things one way.